Hello. Happy Halloween. What better day than to talk about psychism than Halloween? This chapter 9, difference between objective psychic attack and subjective psychic disturbance. Before we get into this, I want to show y'all something I got custom made. Negative thoughts, negative suggestions have no influence over me at any level of mind. Also, I want to say, may we all be protected from any ill will, any ill intentions, uh, purposefully or ignorantly, and any ill will, any bad intent, any energy sent to harm anyone on this live, including me and you, shall be sent back to sender with love and peace. Okay. Psychism, however genuine, is a fruitful case of self-delusion. Now remember what's the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to get rid of the fear, to overcome the fear so we can go deeper within ourselves. So we won't be afraid to explore ourselves. So we won't be afraid to go after more knowledge and wisdom and apply it. Because we grew up in a society where all this stuff was demonized. It was put down. We was told, don't dwell within that stuff. It's time for us to now overcome this so we can move on. This is the age of enlightenment, the age of conscious expansion. It's time for us to move past that and grow and come into our true knowing of our true power, which is without fear. Okay. Psychism, however genuine, is a fruitful cause of self-delusion. A psychic is invariably highly sensitive and suggestible. This is the basis of his gifts. Psychism not being a normal development among Europeans at any rate, the psychic is, in the language of nautical engineers, over-engined for his hull. He is consequently unstable, liable to violent emotional reactions, and in general exhibits those aberrations of conduct we are accustomed to associate with the artistic genius. Unless a psychic is trained, disciplined, protected, and watched over by those who understand his condition, his psychism is never reliable because he is blown out by every wind of influence. The psychic and the neurotic are closely akin in their reactions to life, but the neurotic differs from the psychic in that instead of being over-engined by his whole, he is underhauled by for his engines. The result is the same, however, a discrepancy between the force and form with a consistent inability to maintain a central reason directing control. The technique of the occult discipline is largely directed towards maintaining control of the desperate forces, compensating the sensitiveness of the psychic and protecting him from unwanted impressions. It is never well to learn how to open the door of the unseen unless at the same time one learns how to close and latch it. So, you know what I'm saying? Don't be playing with stuff if you're not prepared for it. Not out of fear, just because that's with anything. You should be playing with fire if you don't know how fire operates. It's not because it's evil. It's not because the fire out to get you. It's not because the fire is demonic. It's just if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna get burned. If you know what you're doing, you're gonna be perfectly fine. As was noted in the introduction, it is comparatively seldom that the unseen comes in search of human beings. As the caterpillar told Alice concerning the puppy dog, you let it alone and it will let you alone. But if you begin to study occultism or to even dabble in it, sooner or later we are liable to obtain results, provided, of course, that the system we are using contains the germs of efficacy. In the case of the person, in the case of a person who is coming onto the path for the first time, progress is necessarily slow and laborious. But a soul that has taken initiation in previous incarnations may reopen the latent psychic faculties so rapidly that the problem of maintaining the harmonized coordination of the personality becomes a serious one. It is exceedingly common for a person who is making his first contact with the occult movement to experience psychic disturbance. This is sometimes attributed to evil influences, sometimes to evil entities. Neither of these inferences may be just. You must be entertained, man. It gotta be something about this that got your attention. Keep listening. You'll figure what type of BS this is. Just keep listening. Come on in, sit on down, be quiet and listen. There is a third possibility, which is reasonable for by far the greater percentage of victims. The mere fact that consciousness is being disturbed by an unaccustomed force. How common a thing it is to see a child feverish and fretful during the first few days of a seaside holiday. It is not necessarily sickening for an illness. The strong air and unaccustomed food and the excitement of its new surroundings are disturbing its sensitive physical equilibrium. So, it is when the neophyte is disturbed at the outset of his occult career. The unaccustomed vibrations are upsetting him, and he is having an attack of occult indigestion. In both cases, the treatment is the same: temporary restriction of the diet, which has caused disturbance. Another case of psychic upset may lie in the partial recovery of the memories of past incarnations. If these include any painful episodes, especially such as are connected with esoteric studies. The entry of occult concepts into the conscious mind tends to awaken the subconscious memory of similar experiences in past lives. The emotion surrounding a memory is invariably recovered before the actual image of the incident. This is one of the best tests for the accuracy of memories of past lives. This foreshadowing emotion may hang about for a long time on the threshold of consciousness before the image the images clarify sufficiently to become tangible. If the emotion that is rising over the horizon is of a painful nature, it may cause considerable disturbance. And in the absence of an experienced advisor, may be attributed to an occult attack or to the psychic perception of evil influences in the occult group to which the neophyte is affiliated. It is necessary to use very great caution in drawing conclusions from the psychic impressions of an inexperienced student who is apt to be as full of alarms as a 2-year-old. On the other hand, the instinctive reactions of a pure and sensitive soul are not to be ignored. There are such things as black lodges and evil entities. We must not allow the cry of woof woof to make us either callous or careless. In any case, the victim is suffering remedial discomfort. It is exceedingly difficult to determine psychically whether the complainant has reasonable grounds for his feelings, for his own imagination will have filled his atmosphere with menacing thought forms. His own imagination, see, it's mental once again. His own imagination will have filled his atmosphere, his environment, whatever he think he sees, with menacing thought forms. It is no simple matter to decide whether these thought forms are subjective or objective. The wisest way is to rely on such evidence as is capable of objective examination and inquire into the record of the particular group or occultist against whom the charges are being brought. But it is equally necessary to inquire into the record of it is equally necessary to inquire into the record of the person who is bringing the charges. That the person is filled with the loftiest ideals is no proof that he has a level head, a clear and unbiased judgment, or appreciation of the nature of evidence. A person need not be a deliberate liar to make statements that are very far from the truth. Another factor which has to be reckoned with is the vagaries of the sex instinct in a person in whom that instinct is repressed. Consider the case of a woman, perhaps no longer young, whose circumstances for the first time permit her to follow her own inclinations. A very common case with homekeeping women who have to wait for dead men's shoes before they can set out on life's journey. She takes up occultism, towards which she may always have wanted to, and then she joins some circle for study and possible ritual initiation. The leader of that circle will, in all probability, be a person of strong individuality. The inexperienced, love-starved newcomer is glamored. Ritual is a very stimulating thing, as Anglo-Catholic clergy have found to their cost. The woman, possibly quite ignorant of the facts of life, finds herself strangely stirred. She is frightened. She senses that something of the kingdom of Pan is approaching. Her instincts will usually guide her truly enough in divining the source from which the disturbing influence proceeds. She will point an unearned finger at the magnetic male. She will seldom take into account the reactions of the female in the presence of the male. If she is a woman ignorant of the facts of life, the charge she brings will usually take the form of an accusation of hypnotic influence. She does not realize that nature of the hypnotist. If she is a woman who knows something of the world, the charge may be of improper advances. One glance at the woman is usually enough to tell us whether there is likely to be any foundation in this charge or not. It is seldom the young and pretty girl who might reasonably be apprehensive who is the teller of these stories. It is a curious fact that it never seems to occur to the complainants either to take refuge in flight or put the matter in the hands of a solicitor. If at the end of a long tale full of dark hints and unspeakable, the question is asked, what exactly did he do? The answer usually is, he looked at me in a meaning way. When one of these stories is being told, we should be wise to give more attention to the bearing of the person who is telling it than to the facts alleged. This will usually yield the more valuable information. It is the most difficult thing in the world to get a genuine victim to speak. A woman who is broadcasting the tale of her own shame is usually a woman scorned, and the reliability of her testimony in the matter is in inverse ratio to her loquacity. 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 Do not let us forget that it takes two to make a scandal as well as a quarrel. If the person who admits a mistake and asks for help to retrace wandering footsteps is much more likely to be worth helping than the one who claims to be even as the angels in heaven, where there is neither marrying nor giving in marriage. So great is the need for caution in assessing the facts in a charge of immorality that the law courts will not accept the evidence of the victim, even on oath and under cross-examination, unless it is supported by additional testimony. Equally well does the doctor know the same type of mentality. And a common form of mental derangement is called old maid's insanity, even in the textbooks. I could cite cases by the dozens and exemplification of the preceding statements, but they have not sufficient occult interest to justify their inclusion in these pages. If the leader of the group is a woman, a different set of reactions come into play, though the same causes are at work. It is not generally realized that the fixation or crush of one woman for another is really a substitute love affair, as is proved by the fact that the girl who has plenty of admirers or the woman who is happily married is never given to them. In this case, just as much as in the normal heterosexual attraction, hell knows no fury like a woman scorned. It is not, for obvious reasons, possible to bring charges of improper behavior. Though in one accusation, this was alleged against me, and I was accused of being a man in disguise and attempting to seduce the complainant. And the charge found believers. The charge brought in such cases usually takes one or two forms. The mechanism being either you don't love me, therefore you are cruel, I have been badly treated. And the most far-fetched instances are raked up in support of this charge. Or you don't love me, therefore I hate you. The attraction you have for me is hypnotic. It must be borne in mind in assessing these charges that a trained occultist, especially if of high grade, has an exceedingly magnetic personality, and this is apt to prove disturbing to those who are accustomed to high tension psychic forces. For whereas the person who is ripe for development will unfold the higher consciousness rapidly in the atmosphere of a high-grade initiate, the person who is not ready may find these influences profoundly disturbing. An adept who also allows unsuitable persons to enter his magnetic field is blameworthy for his lack of discrimination and discretion. But he cannot justly be charged with abuse of occult powers. He emanates force involuntarily and cannot help himself. The greatest adepts always live in seclusion, for not only do they need solitude for their work, but their influence upon unprepared souls produce too violent a reaction. And it is in the cross of the hemlock cup. That's funny because even in the book, The Kabbalion, the seven Hermetic principles, Hermetic philosophy, it even talks about how back in that time when they were studying the seven principles, it said some of them went off on their own so they could master it. They basically left society so they could have the solitude to master these things. So I just thought that was interesting. She said the greater depths always live in seclusion. And I was talking to a friend of mine about that too. I said most people who, you know how we watch these YouTube videos and we call people spiritual leaders and we put people on these pedestals and we get it's like a popularity contest or we think this person know more than this person. I said most of the people who really truly powerful, they not on social media. Most of them you will never hear about them. They don't exist. We must not be unmindful of the fact that the person who comes to us with a long tail of occult attack and asks for assistance, especially financial assistance, may simply be pitching a yarn and should use the same discrimination that we would in listening to any other hard luck story. Trying to differentiate between the deserving and the undeserving. I knew a man who allowed an alleged adept who was undergoing an alleged occult attack to take refuge in his studio and return after a short absence to find that the alleged one had been selling the furniture to buy drink, and there was every reason to believe that the only spirits who were in any way concerned with his troubles had entered the studio in bottles. So what she said is, don't be fooled. You know what I'm saying? I like the example about the money hard luck story. Like she under a psychic attack, somebody trying to block her financial advances. Are they really? Or are you doing it to yourself? Or do you have bad spending habits? Do you believe in abundance? Do you believe in wealth? Do you believe you deserve these things? Or is you in your head you think somebody trying to stop you from getting something, but it really ain't nobody trying to stop you from nothing. It's really your own self doing this to yourself through your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs. So don't be fooled. See what I'm saying? Don't be a fool. The complaints of a cold attack may have their source in nothing more or less than the delusions of the insane. And it does not necessarily invalidate this fact that a second person can be found to give supporting evidence. There is a curious form of insanity known to alienists called folie de douce. I don't know if I said that right, but whatever. in which two people intimately associated together share the same delusions. It is usually found in such cases that one is definitely insane and that the other is of a hysterical type and has become imbued with the delusions of her associates by means of suggestion. So, the means of suggestion is the same thing as affirmations. It's the same thing. It's just like you putting yourself in an environment with people who think positive versus you putting yourself in an environment with people who think negative. If you don't have the fortitude within yourself, you will be influenced. So, for example, let's say person A has a weak sense of self-worth. They go around the positive people. They become influenced by positive people, which is a good thing. But they go around negative people, and all of that influence that they got from positive people get wiped away, and they start thinking negative. Versus person B, who has a strong sense of self-worth, they can go in any environment and not be easily influenced, not be easily auto-suggested. So if somebody says, we poor, they can say to themselves, that's not true. Versus person A, they will say, you right, we are poor. See what I'm saying? Now you're creating this scenario within yourself. Psychic attack, it's the same stuff. It's just under a different name and to different levels of extremity. See what I'm saying? So it's not all that extreme if you poor, if you feel like you're poor. But it could be really extreme. Let's say you feel like you're poor, but you got a roof over your head. You might not have a car, but you got somebody who provides you with rides. You got bus fare. You can walk pretty good. So you might feel like you're poor, but that's not really true, is it? Versus someone who really don't have nothing. They outside, sleeping outside. They don't have friends. They don't have family. They have no type of support system. That's a more extreme. See what I'm saying? And all these things can be changed for the better. I use the feminine pronoun because this form of insanity is rare with males. It usually occurs with two sisters or with two women living together. And I'll even add to that myself. A lot of men, we don't allow that stuff. You say, not all of us, because all men ain't built the same. And I'm not talking down on women. I'm just saying a woman can cry and her peers will comfort her, which is fine. She could go and cry about her life. Oh, my life's so messed up. And her friends and family will comfort her. If a man do that, his people going to start looking at him like, bro, you tripping. They'll give him a little moment to grieve. See what I'm saying? He'll get his moment to grieve. He can complain, oh, my life is shambles. But if he keep doing that shit, people going to say, nigga, you tripping. Get your shit together. See what I'm saying? He ain't gonna be able to complain and cry too long. A woman, she might can do that. She might can do that. People could, in this world, just observe. They gonna talk. They might talk behind her back. They might say she always crying and complaining, but they gonna still. It's okay. But a man, good luck with that. And this is not to talk about genders. I'm just pointing out stuff that you can observe with your own two eyes. That's all. There is another pitfall for which the unexperienced do well to watch out in their dealings with the person who complains of a psychic occult attack. Insanity may be periodic in its manifestation, outbreaks of acute mania, alternating with periods of complete sanity. This periodic aspect should always be watched for in the case of women. This is a woman saying this stuff too, y'all, so don't come after me. I'm reading. Don't come after me talking about this and that. Nah. Remember what I said. You believe what you want to believe. Don't ever believe everything that's come out of somebody's mouth anyway. Just come and get what you came to get and leave the rest on the table. Take what you need, leave the rest. This periodic aspect should always be watched for in the case of women, in whom any temperamental instability becomes greatly exaggerated during the times of monthly periods, at the change of life, during pregnancy, and in fact, at any period when the sex life is stirred to activity, whether emotionally or physically. It is also well to bear in mind that in pathological cases, the periodicity of a woman's function may be greatly disturbed. Remember, I ain't this. I'm reading. Don't come after me. Don't do me like that. I'm reading from a book, and the woman said that herself. But that pregnancy stuff is kind of accurate. A lot of women do be tripping when they be pregnant, but I don't be wanting to say nothing because I'm a man, and I know I ain't gonna say nothing. But accountability can go a long way. It can go a long way. But some women, when they get pregnant, they become very over exaggerated. They start making it seem like they got to be treated like babies themselves, which is fine. Some man might want to do that for you. That I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just pointing that fact out that this happens. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just I'm just saying these are observations. I had a short lesson in this respect upon one occasion, which exemplifies the need of caution we had at the introduction of one of our members. Received into our own community houses a woman whose husband, a well known man in public life, refused to live with her, so I was told, and had made several attempts to do away with her, and threatened to have her certified insane if she in any way resisted him. These facts were vouched for by a circle of friends to whom both husband and wife were known. I kept this lady under observation for a month in order to see whether there was anything to justify the charge of insanity, and seeing nothing, took up her case. So, it's like she said, she kept her under observation. She didn't judge her. She didn't pick sides. She didn't say, I don't believe this or I believe that. She just sat back and took observation. That's the best thing for you to do. Just sit back and watch. And the truth will be shown to you. Boom. At the 7th week, however, trouble ensued. She got into a great state of excitement, declared that she was being starved and ill-treated by the person who, in my absence, was responsible for the house. 7 weeks later, we had another bout in which she said that evil influences were proceeding from a certain cupboard in her room, wandered about the house in exceedingly inadequate apparel, and lost all self-control. This attack also passed off in a few days. It came out in the end that she suffered from chronic appendicitis, which involved the right ovary. And whenever her exceedingly irregular menstruation occurred, she went right off her head for a few days. The position was greatly complicated by the fact that in interregnum, she was to all outward appearances perfectly sane. After she left our community house, she told exactly the same stories about us that she had been previously telling about her husband. The out and out lunatic is a much less serious problem to society than these borderline cases. They need dealing with extremely cautiously, for they can cause an immense amount of trouble. When an insanity has become well developed, anyone who has had experiences of lunatics has little difficulty in recognizing. Each type of insanity has its characteristics, facial expression, and even gait. But it is not so simple a matter for even the expert to recognize an insanity in its incipient stages. Lunatics are exceedingly plausible. And if they have picked up something of the jargon of the occultist or spiritualist, can make out an extraordinarily good case for themselves. Even the experienced alienist often has to keep a case under observation in order to ascertain whether it is an actual insanity or not. In a field where experts are frequently in doubt, what is a layman to do who finds himself confronted by a case which rouses his suspicions? He cannot be expected to recognize insanity when he sees it, but his own common sense ought to be sufficient to enable him to recognize sanity. In other words, let him suspend judgment upon the alleged fact and concentrate upon the question of motive. If it is here, he will find his best indication. If a person can offer no valid explanation as to the reasons for the attack that is being made upon him, nor as to its causes of origin, we can probably rest assured that it originates in his own imagination. In one case, which came into my hands for help, the victim declared that he was being persecuted by telepathic suggestion. I inquired as to the origin of his persecution, and he said that some people who live in the next flat used to sit in a circle and concentrate upon him. I asked him why they did this. He did not know. I asked him how he knew they did it. He he could not tell me. He merely reiterated that they did it, although he admitted that he had never been inside their flat. Never. In fact, even spoken to them, except to exchange a good morning on the stairs. It was immediately apparent that there was no conceivable motive that could cause these people to go to the trouble of persecuting him. If anyone has ever tried any experiments with telepathic suggestion, they will know what intense concentration it requires, and in fact, what hard work it is, and one cannot possibly imagine anyone putting themselves to the trouble of doing it over long periods of time without a very definite motive. I have, however, heard of a well authenticated case of a woman who had a oh, a liaison with a married man attacking his wife in this way. I have also myself known of two cases in which a certain individual, at one time prominent in transcendental circles in connection with what the newspapers politely call his prayer shop, and equally well known in the city in connection with his efforts to obtain gold from seawater, used telepathic suggestion in order to induce the signing of checks and documents. Before a visitor was expected for an interview, he would sit down and concentrate upon him. So strong was the influence thus exerted that a man of my acquaintance threw up a post he held under him because of the undue mental influence he felt was being exerted over himself, and another resigned off the board of one of his companies for the same reason. In both cases, an adequate motive for the mental attack is not far to seek. Compare these two cases with the previous one, and the difference can readily be perceived. We should, however, be just as cautious in deciding there is nothing wrong as in accepting at their face value any statements that may be made to us. Moreover, we should always bear in mind when dealing with a person who is obviously mentally unbalanced and who alleges a psychic attack that the mental unbalance may have been induced by the psychic attack. Life is a strange thing at best, and many things that are stranger than usual can happen to those who move in occult circles. And remember what occult means. It just means esoteric. You know what I'm saying? It just means uh, you seeking a knowledge that most people don't seek, which has been demonized, which has been looked at as something that's bad or something you should be afraid of. So even that right there will induce fear in yourself, which will be produced in the outer world. You never heard about like Jesus or Buddha or none of them becoming psychically attacked, have you? No. You know why? Because they knew better than that. They knew they couldn't be touched. Therefore, they was never touched. Now, boom. And when it comes to psychic attack, it's not always about ghosts and supernatural forces. Sometimes it's just people thinking people have to get them. Or maybe they are. But it's not always something over the top. It don't always have to be something mystical. Sometimes it's just something very simple. Somebody trying to bully somebody could be a form of psychic attack. Somebody making it up in their head that somebody trying to bully them when ain't nobody not trying to bully them. See what I'm saying? Negative thoughts, negative suggestions have no influence over me at any level of mind. Peace and love. Have a nice day. I'll see y'all next time.